Good morning. My name is Benjamin Gadan. I'm the director of the Latin America program here at the Wilson Center in Washington. Thank you so much for joining today's dialogue. Bienvenidos y gracias por su participación en la conversación de hoy. Today, I'm thrilled to be hosting the latest and last dialogue in our Argentina Project's Argentina Elige program, a series of high-level conversations about the policy ideas of the top candidates in Argentina's presidential election. This Sunday, November 19th, Argentina will choose its next leader in the second round of a highly competitive, highly unpredictable, highly consequential presidential election. Voters will choose between the Peronist finance minister, Sergio Massa, a veteran politician, and his opponent, the libertarian lawmaker Javier Milei, an anti-establishment outsider. Milei was the top performer in Argentina's open presidential primary in August. However, Massa finished first in the first round of the presidential election earlier this month. He attracted 37% of the vote, followed by Milei with 30%, and Patricia Bullrich, another conservative opposition candidate, with 24%. So far, public opinion and public attention have largely focused on the candidate's economic policies, and that is no surprise. Argentina is struggling to contain triple-digit inflation, reverse negative growth, address crushing debt, and a dramatic scarcity of hard currency that was made worse by a historic drought. In advance of the election, polling has revealed deep pessimism. Views about the state of the country have not been this negative since the 2001-2002 economic collapse. In the presidential debate on Sunday, however, Massa drew attention to the dramatic differences between the candidates on foreign policy issues that also came up during a recent vice presidential debate. The discussion of foreign policy was valuable, at least in my view. After all, this election could reshape Argentina's international affairs, with serious implications for the region and the world. Argentina is among the world's top food producers, a potential energy powerhouse, and historically, an important partner to the United States for the defense of democracy and human rights. Milei has promised to radically reimagine Argentina's international agenda, and he has very different ideas about who are Argentina's friends and foes in the world. For example, both Peronist and conservative governments in Argentina have pursued ever closer ties to China, the top consumer of Argentina's agricultural exports and the source of billions of dollars in infrastructure finance. Under President Alberto Fernandez, Argentina joined China's Belt and Road Initiative and successfully lobbied for an invitation for membership in the China-led BRICS group. By contrast, Milei has been dismissive of the importance of China, promising not to pursue close diplomatic ties and suggesting he would reject the BRICS invitation. It's not only that I will not do business with China, Milei once said, I won't do business with any communists. He's expressed similar sentiments regarding neighboring Brazil, a major consumer of Argentina's manufactured exports. We recently spoke to Milei's senior foreign policy advisor, Diana Mondino, and she downplayed Milei's mistrust of Xi Jinping and Lula. For Argentine businesses, she suggested, it would be business as usual. Still, in Sunday's debate, Massa sounded alarms about his opponent's proposed changes to Argentine foreign policy. Unlike Milei, he said, quote, we are going to defend the trade agenda with Brazil and China, which employs 2 million Argentines. The first thing we have to be clear about is multipolarity, Massa said in another exchange. Argentina has to have relations with all the countries that open their arms and markets to Argentine labor. To learn more about Massa's vision for Argentina's role in the world, I'm delighted to be hosting his senior foreign policy advisor, Ambassador Gustavo Martínez Pandiani. Gustavo is a longtime friend of the Wilson Center. I'm thrilled he's joining us today. Welcome, Gustavo. I'm also grateful to our partners at McClarty Associates and McClarty's regional director, Kezia McKegg, for their partnership in organizing today's discussion, and to my colleague, Beatriz Garcia-Nice, for her terrific support. I'll now turn this conversation over to Kezia, who will be moderating the dialogue. Thank you again for all of you joining us online in Argentina, the United States, and elsewhere. I look forward to learning from this conversation.
Thank you, Benjamin, and thank you so much, Gustavo, for joining us today. As Benjamin mentioned, Gustavo is a career diplomat with more than 30 years of experience in Argentina's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's currently ambassador of Argentina to Switzerland, and is also, most importantly, a trusted foreign policy advisor, the trusted foreign policy advisor to the presidential candidate Sergio Massa from Unión por la Patria. Prior to his nomination as ambassador to Switzerland in May of this year, he served as Undersecretary for Latin American and Caribbean Affairs in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as National Coordinator of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC. We first met when he was actually ambassador to Barbados and several other Caribbean countries, but was accompanying Mr. Massa on a trip to Washington in 2021, if I recall. His first major trip to Washington in this administration. And Gustavo, of course, has served in a variety of leadership and advisory roles dealing with the U.S.-Argentina bilateral relationship as well, given that Sergio Massa has cultivated such close relationships in Washington over the years. Gustavo, you know us well, and I know you know the Wilson Center well. So it's a pleasure to have this conversation with you this morning, just a few days away from a very high-stakes election in Argentina. You recently spoke with your counterparts from the other political forces at a Argentine Council on Foreign Relations event that I tuned in for. And you described there a pragmatic, less ideological foreign policy for Sergio Massa, aimed at helping to address Argentina's macroeconomic challenges and seeking the foreign revenue, the dollars the country very much needs. Could you kick us off today by describing what would be those priorities of foreign policy in a Sergio Massa administration?
Sure. Let me first thank you, Lakeisha and Benjamin, and of course, to the Wilson Center for this kind invitation, and especially to those participating this morning with us. So I go straight to the point. Sergio Massa proposes a foreign policy that is a pragmatic foreign policy. We conceive foreign policy as a tool to achieve development with inclusion. Argentina needs to develop its economy and at the same time, the society. We don't want to leave anyone behind, so we are not only targeting for growth, but we are targeting for development. And in that sense, for us, foreign policy is a very important tool to reach that objective. In that sense, I should say that our foreign policy proposal is a pragmatic one in the sense that the national interest is going to be in the center of every decision we're going to make at the time, if, of course, Sergio Massa becomes the president of Argentina. National interest is a concept that is sometimes hard to define, but for us, it's a very clear concept. National interest means that every decision we make in terms of foreign policy has to have the impact, the positive impact in our economy, especially in creating new jobs, in modernizing our production system, in creating opportunities for our companies, especially SMEs, small and medium enterprises. So probably you could say that this pragmatic foreign policy proposal has in its heart the idea of creating new opportunities for our companies, for our pymes or SMEs, as we call it in English, and especially for our workers. So we have three ways to reach this goal. We need hard currency. As Benjamin expressed in the introduction, Argentina needs hard currency, foreign currency, and we have two approaches to do so. We have two ways to see the need of Argentina. One is a fictional one, the idea of dollarizations without dollars. Of course, we are not going to go that way because it's not a feasible one. The other option you have in order to get the hard currency we need is a realistic one. And we are, of course, going to go that way. There are three tools, in our opinion, to reach the objective of getting the hard currency we need. The first, and probably the most important, is to increase our exports, but increase our export with added value. Not any type of export, especially those exports that add value and create jobs in Argentina. The second way to reach the objective of getting the hard currency we need is to increase foreign investment in Argentina. Foreign investment in the sense of productive foreign investment, not just financial foreign investment. And we are going to work very hard in order to attract those foreign investors, to give them the conditions and the incentives to participate in this new stage in Argentine economy with Sergio Massa as the president. And the third way to reach those resources we need is receptive tourism. Argentina is a very attractive country for tourists. We have a beautiful country and we need more tourists from all over the world in Argentina. So more exports, more foreign investment, more tourism are the way to go, in our opinion. And these three tools are going to be in the center of our foreign policy design. That's why we call it a realistic and pragmatic foreign policy. The orientation is going to be especially focused on the economic and trade and investment side of foreign policy. Our foreign ministry is going to play the different role in that sense. We are going to put most of our ambassadors, consuls, and all diplomats pursuing that goal of attracting those resources abroad. So we are going to propose and implement a reform on the way we diplomats, career diplomats, we work and we see our role in this framework. We need more markets, we need more partners, we need more investment, we need more opportunity for our companies and for our workers. And I'm saying this because while we are proposing more partners, on the other side of the electoral process, the other candidate is proposing less, fewer partners, fewer markets. We don't see at all the world as a problem or as a risk. We see the world as an opportunity. Sergio Massa is probably the most and better connected politician in Argentina, especially with the US, but also with Brazil, with Europe, with China, with Israel. You there, most of you that are participating in this conversation this morning, you know Sergio Massa, you know us, you know him. We have been in the Wilson Center many times. We have had very productive conversations and negotiations with the US government, with the US companies, with the US Chamber of Commerce, with specific players of your political and economic system. So it's not going to be a surprise for you that Sergio proposes to have the best relation possible with the US. In fact, we have been doing that for a long time. Sergio Massa was member of the House, was the Speaker of the House. Presently, he is the Minister of the Economy. And in all those roles, we built a trust relation with the US. And of course, we are going to continue working in increasing and strengthening this link we have with the American political system and with the American economic system. But the national interest, as I said before, is going to be the key of our foreign policy. We are not going to do foreign policy with ideological prejudice or personal whims. Some other candidate is proposing relating to the world according with his own ideological or personal whims. We do not believe that that is the way to go. We believe that Argentina needs to have good relationships with everyone in the world. We need all markets. Argentina needs to develop. We need more hard currency in order to, to correct the problems we have now. So we are ready to open Argentina in a more positive attitude towards the foreign investors, but of course, always with our national interest in hand. That is going to be probably the most important criteria to make decisions in foreign policy. Is it convenient for our companies? Is it convenient for our workers? Is it convenient for the Argentinians in general? If the answer is yes, we are going to be there. If the answer is not, we are not going to be there. So I would say that today, few days before the election, you have two different perspectives competing with each other. One is a pragmatic foreign policy proposal. The other one is a highly ideological foreign policy proposal. Milei is saying that he's not going to have an intense relationship with China or with Brazil, or he's going to destroy the Mercosur, or he's going to break relations with the Pope. You know, all these things that are surprising probably the whole world and at the Argentinians for sure. But we are not going to enter in that difficult to understand territory. We are going to keep our focus on the resources we need. And this is a very strong message for your companies in the US. We are going to work with you, together with the companies, in order to put together a good package of incentives, law, Congress, executive power, working together in order to attract the foreign investments we need. And of course, we are going to do this in a very cooperative way with the private sector. Everybody knows the idea of cooperation between the public sector and the private sector that Sergio Massa has been proposing for probably forever. We don't see the private sector as the enemy or companies as the enemies. On the contrary, we see that without companies, we wouldn't have any workers. So we are ready to work with the companies. We are ready to work with the private sector in the US and all around the world in order to put together the opportunities we need to increase our trade, to increase our reception of investment, and to increase our tourism opportunities. So basically, we are going to put the foreign policy with the objective of creating new jobs in Argentina. That is going to be the first priority. Create jobs, well-paid, quality jobs, because that is what we need. And in order to do that, we are going to do it with the world and not against the world. We want more world in Argentina, and we want more Argentina in the world. So this is basically our priorities. And just to finalize, we are going to do it with a federal approach. We believe that, as you know, provinces are very important in Argentina because, among other things, provinces are the owners of most natural resources, you know, in mining, in lithium. So we are going to put together a very federal approach in order to work together, the federal government with the provincial governments, and together with them and together with the private sector, we are going to put into place a very pragmatic foreign policy.
Gustavo, while we're on that topic, I realize that, of course, you are the foreign policy advisor, and some of these questions are more for the economic team. But given how interlinked, as you've described, foreign policy and economic policy will have to be for the next government, given the depth of Argentina's economic challenges, what do you say to companies who meet with you when you're overseas? I know you hear this all the time, but in terms of attracting foreign investors, and we do have, I know, US companies tuning in right now, including many with whom I work, about the concerns regarding capital controls, perhaps the biggest disincentive to invest in Argentina. Obviously, as you've described, foreign policy practitioners, according to Massa's proposal, will be really promoting Argentina's exports, receptive tourism. But in terms of incoming foreign investment, if you can't repatriate profit, obviously it's a huge drag on attracting FDI. What will you say to companies you meet with when you're overseas? For example, in Washington, I know you've heard this message many times.
I would tell them that we are facing a hard situation. We are kind of at the end of the tunnel in terms of, you know, our system with imports, with dividends. We know, we are conscious of that, but there is a reason for that. It's not a decision we made just because we want to. You know, it's a consequence of a very difficult indebtedness process that Argentina faces from the end of the last government. As everybody knows, we are indebted with the IMF. We believe that that was a big mistake from the former administration. That created a situation in which we don't have all the foreign currency we need in order to, at the same time, to face our financial commitments with the international community and, you know, have every dollar we need to develop our industry. That's why we have to prioritize. Unfortunately, during these years, the state, the government needed to privatize the imports. And of course, we didn't do it just because we wanted to. It was a question of feasibility. Now, what I would say to the companies is that if Sergio Massa is elected president of Argentina, we will work very hard in order to go to normal. We will work really hard in order to get back to normality. We know that this is not the ideal situation. It's not ideal for the companies, but it's not ideal for the government either. So we are going to put together, with the program I just mentioned, more exports, more tourism, more investment. That creates the resources we need. That creates the balance we need between the hard currency going out and going in. And of course, it's not going to be from one day to the other. We are not irresponsible. We are not promising, as probably the other sector is promising, things that are not possible. It's going to take a little time, but the decision in Sergio Massa is very strong. We are going to work to put Argentina in line with the normal way that everybody does business internationally. And in order to do that, we have a plan, we have a team, and now we're just waiting for the decision from the Argentine people. If we have this possibility, we are ready to work. Sergio Massa is a leader that everybody knows. Everybody knows the way he thinks. Everybody knows the way he relates with the private sector, with the governments, with the US Democratic and Republican political system. He has a plan and he has a team to be ready to be implementing the plan on December 11th. Now, I emphasize it a lot, the idea of pragmatism, right? I said pragmatism, but I don't want to be misunderstood. When I said pragmatism or foreign policy pragmatic, I don't want to give the false impression that we are just, doing economic business or financial business or trade business without considering any axiological foundation. On the contrary, I just want to add that our foreign policy, even if it is pragmatic and realistic and strategic, is going to be based on a very strong axiological foundation, values, principles, which are very important for the US and very important for Argentina. In our foreign policy design, there are a few values and principles that are important that I share with you in this conversation, because it's going to be probably the foundation of our plan, of our program. Among those principles, I just want to highlight at least 3 or 4, if you allow me to do so. First, the defense of democracy and human rights all over the world. And I repeat, the defense of democracy and human rights all over the world. It doesn't matter where it is, if it is a violation of human rights or democracy, we're going to be there, making sure that Argentina is heard about this situation. This group of traditional Western values I'm going to share with you are going to be in the core of our foreign policy practitioner. Now, the second principle I want to highlight with you is the combat against climate change. The other candidate, Mr. Milei, is saying that climate change does not exist. It's an invention of the international left, whatever that means. We, of course, believe that the consequences of climate change are very clear and very concrete. We're going to do business. The climate change of the environment chapter is going to be very strong. We want to join forces with Europe, with the US, and with every country that is working seriously in combating climate change. Another principle I want to share for our foreign policy, and we are going to continue, is the promotion of gender equality, against discrimination, the protection of minorities that suffer a lot along the world. So that is another principle we're going to put in the center of our ideological platform. Finally, multilateralism. We are going to occupy every space we have within the international system with a very multipolar, multilateral approach. Argentina is going to be playing a very important role if Massa is elected as president in every fora around the world. We are going to be there trying to contribute to the multilateral solution of problems. Of course, with a view of peaceful resolution of conflicts, with a view of dialogue and consensus building. We are not going to use a chainsaw in foreign policy. We are not going to use a distraction tool to relate with the world. We want good relations with everybody, satellite of none, friends of all. That is our approach. We want to be a positive force in the international system. And of course, among these principles, for us it's very important to continue the claim in every international fora of our sovereignty of the Malvinas Islands. That is very important as well. So just to complete my answer, the priorities are, to get the hard currency we need, more exports, more tourism, more foreign investment. We're going to do it with the private sector. We are going to do it together with the countries that are our partners. The US is our first foreign investor. The US is our second destination for our exports. Of course, we want to work even more with the US. We already built a good, trustful link with the US, and we are ready to continue that task. But at the same time, it is important that you understand and everybody understand that the national interest is going to be in the center of our foreign policy design, together with the core of the values I just mentioned.
On that note, when you say friends of everybody, one question that comes to mind, of course, in Washington, which, as you know, is very focused on geopolitical competition with China, is what will be Massa's policy towards China. He's traveled there many times as Minister of Economy. He's often had to walk that geopolitial tightrope of maintaining a close relationship with both Beijing and Washington. How do you see that balance happening in the scenario of a Massa presidency?
Well, Kisia, I see if I were in San Francisco today, together with President Biden and President Xi Jinping. I see it as the normal relation with different countries, with different interests, that they live together in the same world. The main trade partner for the US is China, and the main trade partner for China is the US. So the question is an easy one. We're going to do the same. We're going to work with everyone that is important for our national development. We're going to work with everyone that is important for our exports. We're going to work with everyone that is important for our investment in infrastructure. We are going to work with everyone that is important for the creation of jobs in Argentina. We are going to work with everyone that help us to modernize, update our production system. So that is on the trade and the investment side of the equation, friends of all, satellite of none. But then, of course, that not necessarily means that we are going to be aligned with any particular view. As I said before, and from the very beginning, we don't have an ideological view of our foreign policy. We are not going to play the game that the opposition now is proposing, playing an ideological game to connect Argentina with the world. We believe that that would be a mistake. We prefer to connect Argentina with the world in a pragmatic way, without any personal whim. I heard the candidate Milei say that he's not going to have a intense commercial relationship with Brazil because he doesn't like Lula, because Lula, in his opinion, is just a communist. That is not serious in our perspective. We are going to work with Brazil, of course, because it's our main partner, it's our first market for our exports, it's our strategic partner, not only in economic terms, but also in political terms, in strategic terms, in infrastructure, in history, in cultural cooperation. And we're going to do the same with every country. Some countries, as the US, we know them very well. We have been building a relation for many decades already, but now we are interested also in new markets for Argentina, especially Southeast Asia, the Arab world, Africa, North Africa, even some different countries that are not traditional for our exports. So this is the approach that Sergio Massa is proposing. We need to connect more with the world, with everyone that could be a good partner. And this is a key word, Kisha. The word is partner. Argentina, if Sergio Massa is president, does not want to be a supplier, want to be a partner. And this goes for Europe, this goes for the US, this goes for China, and for everybody else. We don't want to be the suppliers of raw material to the world. Ambassador Stanley used to say, Argentina has everything that needs to feed and fuel the world. And we agree with that, right? We have that. We have energy, we have food, we have copper, we have lithium, we have strategic minerals. But now, in this stage, with the leadership of Sergio Massa, we want to be partners with other countries. We don't want to be suppliers. And that is good for both parts, because if you are a partner, you are committed to that relationship. If you are just a supplier, and then a different option, different client comes to you with a better price, you probably go to the next one. If we build good societies, interest societies, Argentina will be okay because it's on line with our national interest, and the foreign partner will be fine because it's a way to secure that relationship. We have the natural resources. Sometimes we don't have the technology we need. That's why we want to work together with you. We want to add value to our exports. We don't want to sell just lithium. We want to sell lithium products. We don't want to sell just any product with the primarization of the exports. We want to add value, because if we add value, together with the growth of the export, we will have more development for our people. And that is exactly what we want to put into place from December 11th. We want foreign policy to play a very important role, which is basically to create new resources abroad, to put them inside our country, and to build a better life for our people. In order to do that, Kisha, let me add, we are going to reform the way that our Ministry of Foreign Affairs operates. Mm-hmm. We want to put every diplomat in the service, focus on economic, trade, commercial type of activities. Less protocol and more business creation, more markets for our products, both for goods and services, more partners. Everybody has to go with a portfolio in the hand, trying to get more business for Argentina. Of course, we have to do it with the private sector, because the state, we don't do business, but we create the conditions for the private sector to do more businesses. I heard from the other side of the electoral competition that they believe that the state has no role to play in this international trade world. We know that that is a mistake. Probably it's a very, very bad way to understand the world. You know that the World Trade Organization in Geneva is a place where governments are represented. You know that when we need to negotiate with the US in any product, you need to work with the phytosanitary services and with the health, animal health and plant health system. And those are the roles that are operated by the state, by the government. You in the US have a very professional services for the Department of Commerce, for FDA. All those roles are made by the state, by the national governments, not by the private sector. So we are not going to abandon our SMEs to a very difficult and competitive world. We are going to work with them. So we are going to put all the foreign service in order to work on those conditions to help the private sector to be able to do business, because we want them to be the protagonist of this new stage in Argentina. We need more investment, we need more exports, and we need the private sector to do so together with us. But we are not going to renounce to the responsibility that government has in order to set a group of rules, a regulatory system that allows them to do business in a proper way.
That reminds me of one issue that was prominent in the government of Mauricio Macri, which was OECD membership. Obviously, in your effort to attract foreign investment, the challenge, as I see it, is one of international credibility. Argentina, unfortunately, has suffered in terms of its reputation with foreign investors, given its economic volatility over many decades. And perhaps one way of improving in addressing that credibility challenge is with the high standards of the OECD. From the perspective of U.S. companies, that's like a good housekeeping seal of approval. Do you have a plan when it comes to OECD membership? Is that of interest to a Massa administration? Is that something you'd want to pursue?
Well, there is an invitation pending, as you know,
right?
Not only to Argentina, but many other countries. OECD, it's an important organization for us. We are considering accepting that invitation, but as you know, we don't want to promise what we cannot fulfill. If you get a commitment with OECD, you need to make sure that you are ready to do so, that you can achieve the goals that you impose to yourself. You know, the other candidate has been very vocal about OECD and promising many, many things that, you know, changing everything from one day to the other, in a very, to be honest with you, in a very demagogic way. But that would be, in our opinion, a leap into the void, a leap into the dark, you know, just to follow a leader that say, okay, we are not going to do this anymore, we are going to do this, but nobody knows exactly what he can achieve. We are not going to do the same. We are not going to promise anything, not only with OECD or any other particular matter, until we are sure we can fulfill our commitments. Minister Massa has been very active in the negotiation with the IMF. It's a difficult negotiation, as you know, and along the process, he didn't commit to whatever he could not fulfill at the end. He was very clear from the beginning. He even resisted some of the decisions that IMF tried to impose on Argentina, because we are very clear about the responsibility of, you know, putting together decisions that then you don't have resources to go with. So I would say, yes, it's important. We will, you know, seriously consider, but it's not today probably the first priority in terms of our situation. Today, we need more hard currency. We need decisions that create more, you know, resources for the Argentine economy. We need more exports. We need more investment. Of course, you could say, well, that is a good way to get more investment, but it doesn't work that way. It's not automatic. You know, it's not like if you have the stamp, you will get more investment tomorrow. It's a process, right? It's a process. So first, we need to win the election. Once we need once we won the election, we will be able to put specific priorities along the line. But now, of course, at least we want to share with you this pragmatic view in which the economic development together with the social development are going to be the main target of our foreign policy. We are not going to keep the disconnection between foreign policy and the rest of the public policies implemented by the state.
You've also touched on international trade policy and the relationship with Brazil. Mercosur figured in the debate this past Sunday. What would be Massa's views on the future of the Mercosur agreement, and what do you see as the prospects for finalizing the very long pending EU-Mercosur deal under a Massa administration?
Okay, this is an important matter, in my opinion. Mercosur is for us the most important platform of Argentina to connect with the world. We believe in Mercosur. We believe that together with Brazil, Uruguay, and Paraguay, we are stronger. If we are a bloc of 300 million people population, we could position ourselves as the fifth bloc in terms of the global competition. So, of course, we are in favor of keeping and making stronger Mercosur. Milei has said that he's going to destroy Mercosur. He's going to explode Mercosur. We don't believe that is a good way to go. Besides the economic side of Mercosur, we have a political and a strategic consideration to make about Mercosur. I want to share with you, Kisha, with the people participating in this conversation, that when the founders of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay decided to build Mercosur, they were not necessarily thinking about trade. They were not necessarily thinking about exchanging chicken for fridge in customs. They were thinking in protecting our democracy. They were thinking in stopping the arms race, including the nuclear arms race, that it was common before democracy came back to our countries. So Mercosur for us is not only an economic and important international platform, but it's also a political and strategic bet. Argentina and Brazil decided many years ago to stop using their resources to compete with each other and to, with those hypotheses of conflict that were common in the past during the dictatorships. So both from the political side and from the economic side, for us, Mercosur is essential for the link with the world. Now, does it mean that we don't have to do any corrections in Mercosur? Does it mean that everything works perfectly? No, probably not. We are ready to work with our partners, with Brazil, with Uruguay, and with Paraguay, in order to modernize Mercosur, because the way to save Mercosur is to update it, to modernize it. It's not to put the chainsaw in Mercosur and destroy it. If something is not working properly, we need to fix it. The worst way to fix a problem is to destroy the total of the dimension of the problem we are trying to fix. That is what they're proposing on the other side. Now, what is the main rule, the basic rule for Mercosur? The main rule is consensus. When we created Mercosur, the 4 countries, we committed with each other to reach every decision by consensus. And we need to keep that principle because it's the one that makes sure that the decision is a decision of the group, is a decision of everyone. So we are going to work, we are listening very carefully to the demands and the worries of other countries, members of Mercosur, because of course, there must be a reason for those worries. We're going to work positively, constructively with all members of Mercosur, but with the rule of consensus, because that is the guarantee that everybody's going to be on the same page with the reform that we are proposing.
Can I ask just as a quick follow-up there? As you know, the administration of Lacalle Pou in Uruguay has been promoting its interest in negotiating trade deals outside of Mercosur, including with China. We've seen a lot of tensions at recent Mercosur summits between the Fernández administration and Uruguay. What is your take on that when it comes to negotiating new trade deals outside of the Mercosur bloc?
Well, as I said before, Mercosur is a consensus building process. Mm-hmm. In order to negotiate external agreements, you have to do it as a group. But let me ask you, and I'm not trying to take advantage of this conversation, but how many free trade agreements Uruguay got, specifically as Uruguay, with any other extra-regional partner so far?
Right.
The answer is none. It's none, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not easy.
They would like to do more with the US, but
no. What I'm saying is the one they proposed with China and with other players, there are no realities yet.
Right.
My point is, it's not easy to negotiate with countries of the dimension of, for example, China, if you don't have, a bigger muscle. We need more muscle to negotiate with these big countries or with big blocs. It's more difficult when you do it individually. So what we are proposing now is, let's get together, let's negotiate together because we are stronger. Let me give you the example of the Mercosur European Union agreement. What is our position?
And you want to cross the finish line on that agreement, that would be.
Yeah, this is our opinion. Is it important for Argentina to get a good agreement with the European Union? Yes, it is. Very important. Are you in favor of to having an agreement with the European Union? Yes, of course. We want to have a good agreement with the European Union as Mercosur. Now, is any agreement okay for you? Of course not. I heard, other sectors in Argentina, political sectors, saying that, okay, we want to sign anything, whatever. Just send me a paper and we'll sign it. We don't believe that is in our national interest. We want a win-win agreement. And what is a win-win agreement? A win-win agreement is an agreement in which both parts are partners. As I said before, we don't want to have an agreement in which we are just suppliers of a supply chain and the value is added somewhere else. We want to be part of the addition of value in order to benefit our own industry, in order to benefit our own workers. So this is what I'm proposing to the European friends. Of course, we want to have an agreement with you. Of course, we want to be partners, but we want to be partners. So let's identify those sectors. For example, natural resources, lithium, strategic minerals, copper, but let's put together a productive partnership. If the partnership goes okay, both of us benefit. If the partners does not go okay, both of us put into risk, our own resources. But if we are just suppliers, Kisia, we are just suppliers. If you are just a supplier, you don't have the commitment is needed in an important, efficient partnership. And that is what we are saying. Do we want to have a good, efficient partnership with Europe? Of course we do. Can we do that before the end of the year? I don't know. We are working on that. The 27 countries in Europe and the 4 countries in Mercosur, we are working really hard in order to reach an agreement. That's what we want. But we want to make sure from Argentina that the agreement we sign is the agreement that makes us partners and is an agreement that could be characterized as a win-win partnership. That is what we want.
Thank you. Moving to an overarching topic that I think is very important to ask you about. What are the elements of continuity versus change on foreign policy between the current Fernández administration and the foreign policy of the Massa administration? One recent example of Massa distancing himself from the current administration has been views regarding the crisis between Israel and Gaza, which of course right now is dominating all discussions about foreign policy in Washington. Can you tell us about what the differences with foreign policy of the Fernández administration would be broadly? And then as another question, what would be the position towards the war with Hamas if Massa takes office in December?
Let me start by the end, if you allow me to.
Sure.
Massa has been very clear, very vocal on the terrorist attack of Hamas against Israel. In fact, during the debate, the presidential debate of the first round, he was not only the first, but the only candidate to express that if he's elected president, he will include Hamas in the Argentine list of terrorist organizations. In that debate, it was not only Massa and Milei, it was also Patricia Bullrich, and neither Patricia Bullrich nor Milei said anything about including Hamas in the list of terrorist organizations. Massa did. He committed himself publicly during the debate to include Hamas in the list as a terrorist organization. And immediately, she expressed solidarity with Israel. We have a very clear position. We strongly condemn the terrorist attack of Hamas. Now, in every democratic transition, when you change government, Keisha, you have continuity and change, both. It's not normal that you have all change or all continuity. Normally, even if it is within the same political party, in any transition, you have some changes and some continuities. Mm-hmm. This is going to be exactly the case. We are going to have some continuities, we're going to have some changes. Let me start by naming a few of them. Let's start by the continuities. What is going to be a continuity? Of course, our strong claim on the sovereignty of the Malvinas Island. We are going to keep working with the international system. We are going to keep claiming to the UK to sit in the table of negotiation because we know that we need to solve the sovereignty issue regarding the Malvinas Island. We are not going to change our policy. We are not going to change the Malvinas Island for medicines. We are not going to put the principle of self-determination to the islanders. to decide. Diana Mondino, who was in this series of conversation, she said to The Guardian that it was important to ask the Islanders what to do about Malvinas. We believe that it's more important to ask the ex-convicts, the families of the fall in the island first. It's important to ask Argentinians what to do with the islands. We do not believe that in the Malvinas case applies the principle of self-determination. It's not possible to apply that principle because the population in Malvinas is an implanted artificial population that it was implanted there by the UK. So the principle of self-determination does not apply. So that is one continuity we're going to keep with passion, because it's not only a mandate from the Constitution of Argentina, it's a popular cry. Another continuity we are going to express during our foreign policy plan is going to be being very active in the field of diversity. You know, Argentina has been in the vanguard of against discrimination, sexual discrimination, minorities, the question of gender equality. You know, Mr. Milei say that there is not a real salary gap between men and women. Believe it or not, that is what he's saying. Of course, we're going to have a very active role in every international fora, reclaiming the equality between men and women. Of course, we're going to be there as a continuity in every fora that relates to minorities around the world. Another continuity would be in the field of the environment. Mr. Milei has said that he does not believe in the Paris Agreement. He's not going to support Agenda 2030. We are going to do exactly the opposite. We are going to support Agenda 2030. We are going to be working with the Paris Agreement standards, and we are going to express a very strong commitment on the environment, even during the negotiation with the European Union. So those are a few continuities. Let me go to the change. Probably you are more interested in the change. The first change we are going to put together in terms of foreign policy is that we are going to redesign the role of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, because we are changing the objectives. We are changing the objective. Now, in the next couple of years, the main goal for our foreign policy is to create the hard currency we need. As I expressed at the beginning of this conversation, exports, foreign investment, receptive tourism, the attraction of new partners, the creation of new opportunities, the opening of new markets. So if these are going to be the targets, we need to change the way we work. You know, as a diplomat, as a career diplomat myself, I have been in the service for 32 years. I can tell you what we do very well and what we could do better. We need to improve our capabilities of attractive resources. We need to put economic and commercial mindset with the new needs of Argentina, with the reality of Argentina, and to work together with the president, who is, of course, the one in charge of the foreign affairs of the country, in order to achieve those goals. So you will see a lot of change in that sense. Another change, we want to build the foreign policy and most of the public policies as a government of national unity. Massa has said, we're going to set up a government with the best from different political sectors. So it won't be a surprise if you see that in his cabinet, you will find people from different political parties, because we understand that the situation is really difficult. We need to put everything we have, the best we have, for those state policies and for the benefit of our people. So we are not going to work in foreign policy as it is a game of identity in terms of ideology of preference. We want to put together a policy, a foreign policy, with the values I share with you. And you remember that one of the values was democracy and human rights. And you will see some differences there. Massa has expressed very clearly a few days ago his opinion about Venezuela. So you will see a stronger position there. But within those values, our policy, our foreign policy, is going to be directed to create opportunities for our people. We are not playing an ideological game. We are not, taking sides in terms of ideological clubs. That is not in favor of Argentina. We are going to work with our traditional partners. We are going to work with the US. We are going to work with Europe. And we are going to work with every country that means an opportunity for Argentina. No, I can't hear you.
Apologies.
Okay.
On that note, given, and especially given your last role in the foreign ministry working on Latin America policy and CELAC, any comments on what a Massa policy would be towards authoritarian governments in the region that are often in conflict with the United States? You mentioned Venezuela, but also Cuba and Nicaragua, for example.
You know that I have been the national coordinator for CELAC during Argentina presidency pro tempore, so I know this issue very well. Massa has expressed his position and his opinion already on Venezuela. He has done the same around Nicaragua. My role, Kisia, is to build bridges, not to break them down. My role here is to build bridges in order to avoid making it worse in terms of the differences that could exist between countries. So we'll see if he's elected, what is going to be the specific policy for those cases you just mentioned. I just can tell you today that he has a very clear his set of principles and values, as I expressed before. But as you know, and you really know, and Benjamin knows, the relations with countries are not unidimensional. It's not one issue that defines the whole relation with countries. In fact, many European countries, they have ambassadors in all these countries you just mentioned. And they, at the same time, they criticize strongly certain aspects of democracy and human rights. So the job of diplomats, Kisia, is not to focus on where the problem is to try to use the rest of the relation we have to fix that part of the relation that is not working properly. So I won't advance more in this particular matter. What I can tell you, and it's public record, Massa has expressed his opinion on the problems that the Venezuelan democracy is facing. He did the same with the case of Nicaragua, but we want to be a positive force. We want to contribute to those countries to have a better democracy. So we are not positioning ourselves as, aggravating the situation. We want, of course, those principles and values be respected all over the world. When I said all over the world, I said all over the world, not in only 3 countries in Latin America. And we are going to work in the multilateral fora in order to express our opinion. This is not probably the time. We need to win the election to put together a specific plan for the region and for the global dimension as well. But I can tell you that the government of Mr. Massa is going to be the government of Mr. Massa. Sergio Massa, if he's the president, he's going to make the calls. He's going to call the cards to the game. He's going to be the one deciding according with the mandate that we receive from our people in the elections.
Good point. I mean, given that policies towards Cuba and Venezuela in Argentina, but also in the United States, of course, are very much affected by the domestic sources of foreign policy too,
right.
Very much interconnected. One other issue briefly that's figured in the campaign has been the invitation to Argentina following the August 2023 BRICS summit to join that bloc. Member countries announced inclusion of 6 new nations, including Argentina. Milei has already said that he would leave BRICS if he were elected, and Patricia Bullrich, when she was still in the race, held the same position. What is Massa's view on Argentina's BRICS membership?
Massa's views on BRICS goes on the line of what I've expressed from the very beginning of this conversation. We want more opportunities, we want more markets, we want more partners. So it doesn't make sense to us to reject to be part of a table in which you have 33% of your exports between Brazil, China, and India, 3 of the main countries of BRICS. We have 33% of our exports today. And as you know, between China and India, in the next couple of years, we are going to have 50% of the growth in terms of trade and economy. So only with that idea in mind, together with the idea of BRICS has 40% of the world population, 30% of the GDP, 30% of the surface of the world, and 20% of trade and investment in terms of the global trade and investment. With all those numbers, it's of course for us an opportunity to sit in such a table. As a diplomat, for at least 3 decades, I have learned that you never leave a seat empty. When you are invited to a forum such as BRICS, you go and sit there, because if you are not seated at the table, you are probably at the menu. You will be probably at the menu if you don't sit at the table. So it's very important for us to be part of that conversation. It doesn't mean a political alignment in 100% of the issues. It's just to be in a table with 3 of the main export destinations of your own economy. One of them being your main partner, not only politically, but also trade and in terms of the economy, your neighbor, your strategic partner to reach the world. And the other 2, probably the most important markets now and in the future for more agricultural products. Why Argentina should reject to be part of such a table? I really don't understand the idea. If you even add the idea of the new development bank that is part of BRICS, that development bank has capitalized already $100 billion, mainly for infrastructure, right? Public works. Why Argentina would reject such an opportunity? We need to update our infrastructure. If we have a development bank, such as the one that is operating in BRICS already today, why should we reject the idea? I really don't understand. Let me tell you that Brazil is our main trade partner. 30 provinces out of our 24 provinces has Brazil as the main economic partner. 9 provinces of Argentina, 9 as China as the main partner, and 2 provinces as India as the main partner. So basically, the whole regional economy in Argentina works mainly with Brazil, with India, with China, in order to put our products and services to the world. Why should we reject the invitation to participate in such a group?
Thank you. We're at time, but thank you for this fascinating and wide-ranging conversation. If you'll permit me one final, very quick question, because so much is often read into the first trip by a president after the inauguration. If Sergio Massa is elected this Sunday and inaugurated on December 10, have you thought about where he would travel in his first 100 days in office?
Mr. Massa does not believe too much in those symbolism. We had a conversation and he said, the most important thing is what we're going to do, the policies, the plans, the programs. He will make his mind probably in a few days.
Sure.
But first we need to win the election. What I can tell you, Kisia, is that we are going to diversify our interests in different areas of the world. Massa is very interested in connecting better with Southeast Eastern Asia, with African markets. So probably we will have a good, idea around those areas of the world to be prioritized. But in order to tell you which is the first country we're going to visit, I can't tell you so.
I thought so, but fair enough. Thank you so much. Thank you to Benjamin. Please, you've used the word partner many times in this conversation. Think us here in Washington, my firm, McClarty Associates, and of course the Wilson Center, which has hosted you and Mr. Massa many times, as partners to you. And we look forward to staying in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kisia. And let me thank one more time to the Wilson Center, to you, to Ben, but especially to the U.S. community, the U.S. business community and the U.S. political community. Sergio Massa, it's very well known there. You know him, you know his ideas, you know the way he sees the world, the way he understands which is the role of Argentina in the Western Hemisphere. But you also know very well which is the situation of Argentina today and which are our needs. We need more markets, we need more resources, we need more foreign trade, we need more foreign investment. I hope that with Sergio Massa as president of Argentina, we will see each other often.
Thank you again, and thanks to our participants. Nos vemos en Buenos Aires. Gracias, Gustavo.
Adiós, gracias.